Okay.
Hello, my name is Isaac Christopher Lubogo, and welcome to Let's Think Outside the Box, Season 7. We promised ourselves that we're going to be motivating you, inspiring you, and causing you to think outside the box and throw the box away. My friends, this is the time to focus, and after focusing, you must make sure that whatever mind you set, you achieve, so that you achieve purpose for your life. So you live what they call a worthful life. Today I want to talk about what we call creative people, natural talent. And I'll begin by what Plato said in a number of words, but to summarize basically, he spoke against what they call stuffing effects of compulsory education. And listen, my friends, I'm not saying that education is bad. I'm just telling you that sometimes we need to debunk this colonial legacy that has been enshrined or entangled around our kind of education, that it kind of limits us inside a certain thinking. It kind of limits your ability to think outside the box, and in the event that you're not even able to throw the box away. So you're stigmatized in terms of your thinking, and that causes you to suffer. That's why many people go to universities and they get different qualifications, but they find no purpose for their education, and they begin struggling. And then you look at people sometimes who have no basic education, and sometimes they're able to excel in the things they do. What is the trick behind that? That is what I want us to discuss today. Listen to what Albert Einstein said. You'll be amazed to know that Albert Einstein, in spite of the fact that he's a celebrated scientist for discovering the theory of relativity, that formula of E equals mc squared, was actually also one time a dropout. In fact, he even failed to enter some of the prestigious Swiss international schools on several attempts. But later he's celebrated as a Nobel Prize winner and perhaps the best scientist that the world has ever known. Listen to what he says. It is in fact nothing short of a miracle that the modern methods of education have not yet entirely strangled the horrid curiosity of inquiry. For this delicate plant, aside from stimulation, stands mainly in need of freedom. Without this, it gives to rack and ruin. Without fail, it's a grave mistake to think that the enjoyment of seeing and searching can be promoted by means of coercion and a sense of duty. Listen, one had to cram all the stuff into one's mind, whether one liked it or not. This coercion had such a deterring effect that after I had passed the final exam, I found no consideration of any of those scientific or issues in the entire year. So whoever undertakes to take himself or herself as a judge of truth and knowledge is shipwrecked by the long term of God. In other words, I think I also agree with what Professor Kanihama said, that the higher I go, the less I realize I know. You see, education can sometimes stifle you if you zero yourself down in terms of a box. And that's the reason why we're going to discuss a few people, and you'll be amazed that perhaps about 20 of the richest people in the world today are actually school dropouts. And please understand me, I'm not saying that education is wrong, and I'm not saying that do not go for education. I'm only saying that you have to learn to free your mind, to think outside the box. I told you last time that sometimes this idea of do you understand kind of limits your way to understand as opposed to overstand. I'm talking about things to do with entomology in terms of the definitiveness of your use of language. Let's go through some issues here that probably would arouse your mind and cause you to think outside the box. Some of you have probably heard of what they call Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch was an American military from Pennsylvania in Virginia, and many times the slaves in America had revolted against their masters, and Willie Lynch had actually come up with this diabolical method of having ways of controlling them. And the only way he could actually give advice to these people in America was that get hold of the black guy. They used to call us the niggers. Get hold of the niggers, okay? Tie one hand on one side of the horse, tie the other hand on the other side of another horse facing opposite direction. Do that to their legs, and then set fire under their private parts. Beat these horses so bad that they tear this black nigger into parts. Do that in front of the other young niggers, the female and male niggers. Tear the skins off, set dogs so that they can bite the private parts off the breasts and the private parts of the women. Do it in front of the young niggers. Put the fear of God in them so that they can be useful for future generation. Take the mind, keep the body, so that they can be useful. My friend, I'm here to appeal to you to redeem your righteous mind. And these are some of the challenges that we go through in terms of life. So my advocacy as an African scholar or as an African Renaissance scholar is to appeal to you to think outside the box in the things we do. Let's go through some of the people who have been scholars and invented much. Look at a guy called Nikola Tesla. This is a guy who had about 300 patented inventions, including things like the remote control, things like AC power, things like coal, things like turbine, shadowgraphs, which have to do with the X-ray, radio, new lamp. And this guy was a Croatian. He actually went to America, later. Hydroelectric power that we so much rejoiced in. Things like induction that have to do with hair, dryers and stuff like that. Radio controlled boat. Perhaps his best invention had to do with AC, alternative that current that helps us to operate in our homes. And unfortunately, in spite of the fact that he had about 300 inventions, the poor man died so stringent and in depression in a single hotel. But because of the inventions that we enjoy today, we're able to celebrate some of the beautiful things that he did out of creative inventions. I came across another individual called Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who actually received Harvard's highest award as a Nigerian writer. And this award is called W.E.B. Du Bois Medal, which is usually given to African Americans who excel. W.E.B. Du Bois was the first African American to receive a PhD from the University of Harvard. Although some people have argued that this was called a house Negro. And I think it was Malcolm X who said there's a distinction between what they call a field Negro and a house Negro. When you tell the field, because the reason why he was saying that is because Du Bois one time says it is impossible for a black man to have the same education like a white man. And Malcolm's reply was because W.E.B. Du Bois was, the other house Negro. The reason is that if the house Negro would not, rain would not probably get on his body, he would eat off the leftovers of the master, he would enjoy the privacy of the home, but then the field Negro on the other hand would be suffering. So that's the reason why W.E.B. Du Bois perhaps said some of those allusions. You need to look out for Malcolm X, the great Malcolm X. So the argument I'm trying to say that is a word that is given in Harvard for people who have excelled. And that was received by Chimamanda Adichie, who received the highest award for her works, especially in literature. And these are some of the people who have excelled and thought outside the box. Another incredible person that I'd like to talk about is Jennifer Nansubuka Makumbi, who wrote a book called Kintu. Listen, Kintu was written and it was rejected in England because the book was considered to be too African. Think about that. This ideology, and this is the box I'm trying to say, this ideology of stigmatizing people or compressing people to think within premises of boxes. This young lady came up with a book and they said, you know what, your book is too African. She went and released it in Kenya. 4 years down the road again now, she received an award later in Yale, one of the best awards for having written a book. So again, there's another gentleman, I think in Zimbabwe, who actually wrote his proposal for the PhD, and then it was rejected by the supervisor. And then he left the university and then went and wrote a book about it. The book became a bestseller. Then after a few years, they called him and said, please, we're giving you an honorary award. Out of that, he rejected. He said, I'm not going to come for the award, but his wife went and represented and got the award. So even as you struggle to think freely outside the box, there are many things that are going to come on you, and people may look at you as a mad person, as a person who is probably crazy. But all the people I'm trying to talk about, and I'm going to mention more, are people who have done things outside the box. And these are people who have had a lot of opposition from the field, and eventually sometimes some of them have, died poor. Your guy, Nelson Mandela, was actually considered by Britain and America as a terrorist one time. Now they are celebrating him as a hero of sorts. Okay? Look at people. I can mention a number of people here, by the way. Let's talk about the story of the Wright brothers. Some of you have known about Wilbur and Orville Wright. Listen, these are the so-called guys who actually began what they call the foundation of aeronautic engineering. And these guys, everything you see flying in the skies today is because of these guys. Do you know how long that plane, the so-called plane, flew? 12 seconds. Can you imagine? 12 seconds. Traveling at 36 meters at a speed of 120 feet. Remember, it covered 2.55.6 meters. That's about 852 feet for about 59 seconds. Just that. And that is the beginning of it. So some of you, when you begin to do things and they fail, and the world laughs at you, you give up. Forget about those laughters. Those laughters will turn into joy, my friend, tomorrow. Let me tell you some of the people, what they call the ultra-successful millionaires and billionaires who have actually been what they call college dropouts. But because, and I'm not saying college or education is wrong, I'm only saying college and education or university or whatever is an instigation. It's perhaps an awakening of your common sense, your ability to think a little bit more, But there is this natural intuition that comes in you, that ability to do things as perhaps anointed or perhaps ordained by God, if I'm using that word. There are those who make a comparison between Messi, for example, and Cristiano Ronaldo. And they say they are good, but Cristiano works very hard to do what he has, and Messi comes naturally. That's a question of debate. Listen, Steve Jobs, your guy Steve Jobs, the guy of Apple. Most of you guys know Apple gadgets. School dropout. Bill Gates, school dropout. People like Mike Zuckerberg, the guy of Facebook, school dropout. Michael Dell, you got Dell Computers, school dropout. Julian Assange, remember that guy, the computer hacker? School dropout. Evan Williams, the one who does the Hewlett Packard, those printers and the like, school dropout. Larry Ellison, the guy, the software engineer, school dropout. John Kwong, the guy who did the things of WhatsApp that you enjoy so much, school dropout. Travis Kalanick, the Uber guy, school dropout. John Market, the guy who does the things to do with Safeway and stuff like that, and Whole Foods, school dropout. Richard Branson, the celebrated guy of Virgin Airlines and Virgin Records, school dropout. Albert Einstein himself failed actually in a prestigious institution, and later, but went to be a celebrated scientist even today. Paul Allen, Larry Ellison, Walt Disney. Who doesn't know Disney World today? People like Alicia Keys, the musician. People like Joel Austin, the preacher. I can mention 1,000 preachers in this country. You know some of them. Thomas Edison. Think about Thomas Edison. Think about people like Rockefeller, the guy Rockefeller Foundation. All those guys were old school dropouts. You know, Thomas Edison. People who actually went ahead and did things like bulbs and cameras. You know, things like all those guys. Colonel Sanders, you're the guy who does your KFC. You know, Kentucky Fried Chicken. School dropout. Like, of course, most of these guys attempted, not because they may have deliberately refused education, but because of the circumstances perhaps. Some of them were sick, some of them didn't have enough money, some of them deliberately went out because they didn't have the zeal, but we are saying they were able to think outside the box. Okay, Whoopi Goldberg, you know, people like Charles Dickens. Think about Charles Dickens, the great Charles Dickens who wrote things like Tale of Two Cities, you know, School Dropout. Walt Disney, Rihanna, you're a musician. Almost all these guys. So we have, I could go on and mention as many as possible just to explain to you that regardless of what you are, as long as you have that impetus in you and that zeal and momentum in you, you can be able to explore that potential that is in you. The ability to excel is in you. This education system only helps you to put you at a standard so they can compete. But please follow your dream, regardless of how many times you're gonna do it. It doesn't matter. You may fail once, you may fail twice. Many people have failed, as I just mentioned, but they were able to excel at a certain time. We have many people, including former presidents of America, who actually had to go through these challenges. And later, I mean, Thomas Jefferson himself, later, who actually argued the independence of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Edison. You know, all those guys. So please understand that as long as you follow your natural talent. So my story to you, or my message to you, is to be what they call creative people and to follow your natural talents. Those are what we call thinking outside the box and throwing the box away. My friend, that's my message for you. So keep dreaming, keep focusing, keep working hard, and never, never, never give up. God bless you, and thank you for your attention.